Hello, Vincent Carroll here. Is it empty heat or is it full heat? Normally there should be no difficulty in distinguishing between the two because, of course, full is excess and it's evident and it's obvious, whereas empty tends to be more subtle, tends to be more hidden, and you have to search for it to find it because it might be more an aspect of personality than anything else. But when you think about it, full heat often consumes yin, yang consumes yin. Let's give a working example of that. Supposing if somebody is very serene, it is unlikely that they'll get angry. Anger is associated with yang, serenity is associated with yin. So if your serenity is in abundance, your anger is probably held in check. But if your serenity, or your yin energies that is diminished, then yang is allowed to climb up and become very obvious to onlookers looking at you. So therefore the yang rises as a result of the yin being consumed, because that's one of the fundamental laws of acupuncture, is it not? Yang consumes yin. So while we see the yang, we may not necessarily see the yin. So take, for example, a person with the migraine headache. The migraine headache very often is excess liver energy powering up the gallbladder channel and manifesting across the distribution of the gallbladder channel, which tends to begin off the eye, goes to where the lobe meets the face of the ear, crossing that position, the Taiyang position, and then it goes along the hemisphere of the head, across the forehead as well, number 13, point 13, 14, 15, then of course 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, which is to the very back of the skull. So that's the distribution of most migraines, and of course that's an example of yang rising. Also you might have trigeminal neuralgia from a Western medical point of view, which is across the distribution of the stomach channel on the face. And all of these are very, very painful and very yang type experiences. Tinnitus would be another example, which comes up both the gallbladder and the Sanjiao channel, terminating in gallbladder number 2 and Sanjiao number 17, again where the lobe meets the face. And all that's very, very evident, and people will come to you for treatment with that. But where does it come from? It can't happen unless that yang has consumed yin. If you have enough yin holding it in place, then that energy will not power up on the greater yang channels. But if that energy, if your yin energy has been consumed, perhaps there's a lifetime of stress or even a number of years of stress that undermine your yin, that subtract from your sense of serenity, your calmness, your peacefulness, then you become a target for yang, and yang will rise because yang will not be held in place. So therefore, when you have yang rising, of course the treatment is to expel, the treatment is to pull it down, to drag it down very often and expel it out through the spring points. So for example, gallbladder number 43 would be a very good example. Stomach number 44 would be very good examples of points that you would drag down excess rising on these greater yang channels. But let's not forget the yin. You can do so and the problem will occur again because yin has been demolished. But because the signs of yang outrank the signs of yin, and the signs of yang clinically are much more obvious than the clinical signs of yin, you're inclined to spot the yang and treat the yang without recognizing the yin. But the yin deficiency is always there to allow the yang to power up. Now, there are some people who are, for want of a better word, fiery people. And these fiery, volatile people, yes, the yang will, of course, rise up rapidly. But even there's a demolition of yin. The person might appear content and happy, but the yang has consumed some aspect of yin. But for most of us, the yang is held in place for as long as possible. We're careful with what we say. We're careful with our choice of words, not to offend other people or whatever, and we bottle it all in. And that demolishes our yin down to such a point that we can't bottle it in anymore. And it rises, not verbally, at least usually not verbally, but it rises instead in the channels, and it produces clinical signs such as migraine headache. And when that happens, that's the rising of yang. You could have itchy, scratchy eyes, a scratchy scalp, tinnitus, trigeminal neuralgia. Well, that's of course in the stomach channel. And of course, a very tight masseter muscle, which is temporomandibular joint pain over stomach 6. And that of course is in the stomach channel as well. I find very often when yang rises as a full heat in the gallbladder channel, it can spill over into other channels, and the next door channel, if you like, is a stomach channel, so it can spill into that. But equally, yang can rise independently in the stomach channel as well, although I find overwhelmingly it tends to be rising up in the gallbladder channel and spilling over into the stomach channel, and sometimes spilling over into the urinary bladder channel as well, because sometimes there's so much yang rising as a result of so much liver stagnation that one channel, or even a bilateral channel, it isn't big enough, if you like, to take all the excess yang rising, so the yang spills into adjacent channels. But when all that is happening, that happens because the yin is down. So the point I'm making is, if you treat yang by dragging yang down, you have to always ask, where's the yin? And to build yin up so that in future the yang will be held in place and won't rise so chaotically. So what do I do? Well, first of all, there's no possible solution unless you get everything freely moving. So it's liver 3, gallbladder 34 regardless. Then you have to drag down, because when you get bottled up energy moving, it's going to go up rather than down, and it's only going to make a migraine worse. So therefore you expel down with gallbladder 43, or if it's in the stomach channel, stomach 44, or if it's in the urinary bladder channel, urinary bladder 66. But one way or the other, you use the spring points to drag down, and of course consider perhaps on the Sanjaya channel as well, spring point there, or else Sanjaya number 5 to drag down on the Sanjaya channel, which is another channel that can raise up yang. But when you've done all that, you have to ask, where is the yin? So again, you tonify on Ren 4, you calm with pericardium 6, and these points are as essential as the other points because they provide foundation. And if you've got foundation of yin in, it's unlikely that the yang will rise as chaotically and as clinically apparently as it otherwise would do. So keep the yin up and the yang will be kept down. So therefore, full heat rising, while that's the manifestation that you actually see, the empty heat allows that to rise. The demolition of the yin allows the yang to rise. So let's not forget about that, because that will put in some permanency to your treatment and give the person a fire break to examine their life and ask why this is occurring to them. And if they can up their yin by increasing their serenity and their calmness and their peacefulness, then in that case the yang will never rise up again in such a catastrophic way. How did they do that? Well, anything that creates, as I often say, a sense of majesty or a sense of wonderment in life will help the yin rise. Quality literature, quality music, spirituality, an appreciation of nature, all of these things that you don't do when your yang is rising. So pull the yang down, but use that as your window of opportunity to promote the yin. Thank you.